Hello YouTube, this is Thomas Judge back once again with another YouTube reading guide series. Today is the second of three videos walking through the correct reading order of all the comics in the DC Beyond universe by DC Comics. To create this reading guide, I've read the 345 comic issues that comprise the shared Beyond continuity, including the essential spin-offs and tie-ins, and I've used that knowledge to build the internet's most detailed reading map for the DC Beyond universe. However, before we get started today, we actually need to talk about something else first. We need to talk about the era of DC Digital Comics. Now, by that I mean comics that were released in a digital exclusive format to start with, sometimes called DC Digital Firsts. You've probably heard of many of these, Injustice, or DC Bombshells, or even Gotham City Garage. The point is that these comics are released as shorter comics in a landscape format. I don't know why this is, and I find it annoying. I prefer reading in portrait personally, but it's important enough that I wanted you to know. The reason for that is that because these comics are available to buy as either physical portrait versions, like normal, but can also be bought digitally in these weird landscape versions that are half the length of a normal issue. Let me explain. If you buy a digital series from Comixology, like for example this image of Justice League Beyond, the single issues look like this. In other words, it's quite common for issues to have the same cover for multiple actual issues. This works because each issue is much shorter than a normal printed issue, and so multiple issues together make up the normal length of one single story. However, they are numbered separately, and as you can see here from this very helpful preview of the issue's first pages, they're also landscape in orientation. Very annoying and a bit confusing. If you're not familiar with them, but you are familiar, for example, with the Marvel Infinite Comics range, it's basically quite similar to that. Now, the reason all this is important to know is because we're getting to the next section of our map here. So this is the map we were talking about in the last video, and things are about to get complicated. In the last video, we discussed the top part of the map, so the bit here that's in the white, and now we're going to talk about these bits that are in the separate coloured blocks. So we talked about Volume 4 of Batman Beyond, Industrial Revolution. Well, Volume 4 was followed here by 3 comics simultaneously. These were actually released as a comic called Batman Beyond Unlimited, which published weekly both digitally and physically, and contained Batman Beyond, Superman Beyond, and Justice League Beyond, all in the same issue. Now this is extremely confusing. There were 18 physical issues of this Batman Beyond Unlimited comic, and they each contained different parts of the digital runs for their respective series. I've tried to work out what digital issues were contained in what physical issues, and I've gotten as far as, I think, this chart. I don't know how helpful this is. It's something that I made just because it was helpful for me to try to understand it. I know it looks weird, and if it's confusing, that's because it is. If it was up to me, I would say just buy these runs all physically or all digitally. Trying to mix and match them is a real nightmare, and the reason is because of this weird piecemeal way of collecting them in this anthology that you can see here. If you do want to try doing it that way, then just feel free to sort of pause the screen and take a note of everything that I've got here. Now, the reason this is all important to know is because we're getting to this section of the map, the bit that's in the yellow box here, which I've called the Unlimited Era. Now, hopefully that background about digital issues helped you, but now let's talk through what you actually need to read. Let's look here at Superman Beyond. So this is the blue circle here. This is what's the best way to put this? It actually starts off slightly unusually. It starts off in the Superman Batman ongoing series at the time. It's actually starting off as Annual 4 of Superman Batman at the time. Now, because Superman Batman wasn't a digital series, that means that Annual 4 was a portrait orientation single issue. And that served as a backdoor pilot to the Superman Beyond issue 0, also in portrait as well, so a normal printed physical issue. But then the main series that followed that was the landscape digital format that we just talked about. Hope that's clear. Now the first collection, the one that we can see here with this picture of Superman in the black and silver, this is called Man of Tomorrow, and it contains the pilot, and then issues 0 to 10. So by the pilot, I mean Annual 4 of Superman Batman, then issues 0, which is a portrait issue, and then issues 1 to 10, which are landscape digital issues. It's an okay read, although it isn't really clear how it ties into the Beyond universe. You can see that cover there, and it makes sense to buy this trade either physically or as one single digital collection in one go. If you do the latter, instead of buying digital issues individually, then it's all collected identically to the physical version. It's set in the exact same way. Now let's jump over here to the left where we can see Justice League, and specifically this is Justice League Beyond, which actually collects Justice League Unlimited, ironically enough. So the first 16 issues, those numbers all relate to the landscape digital only issues, by the way. Those are collected in this trade paperback called Constriction, and that's Constriction with a K. Unfortunately, the reading order isn't simple. It's not 1 to 16. The reading order, if you're getting them as individual issues, is actually 1 to 6, then issue 9, then issues 10 to 15. And the reason for that is that issues 7, 8, 10, and 16 are all unrelated one-shot origin issues for various Justice League Unlimited characters that just break the pace of the otherwise overarching story. I know that might seem confusing, but as always, just rewind and listen again if you need to. It's important to read these issues in the right order if you're doing it one issue at a time, instead of by reading an entire physical or digital trade collection. Now, the reason that we jumped from Superman Beyond here on the right to Justice League Beyond here on the left is that both series are then unified in a single collection, which you can see down here, which is called In Gods We Trust. Now, this is a combined collection. You'll notice I've done a very clever little thing there where I've combined the colours blue and yellow to form green as well. This series collects Justice League Beyond issues 17 to 25 and also Superman Beyond issues 11 to 20. Again, remember these numbers relate to the digital issues, not the physical anthology ones, which were very complicated with that graph I just showed you. So these can be read in any order. You can either read the Superman issues first if you want, or you can read the Justice League issues first if you want. As these two arcs are pretty much unconnected, it makes no difference which one you read first, and it just makes it pretty weird they were collected and published in this way. Okay, guys, I hope that made sense in terms of Superman Justice League Beyond for this era, which we call the Unlimited era. Let's move across, because with those out of the way, let's get back to Terry McGinnis. Keep in mind there are also 29 digital issues of Batman Beyond collected in these Batman Beyond Unlimited issues. These 29 issues are collected in that really confusing way that I just showed you in that chart, but more helpfully, they're also collected as the two trade paperbacks that you can see here. The first trade, and I'll just zoom in here, is this one, which is called 10,000 Clowns. It collects issues 1 to 16 and ends on a massive to be continued cliffhanger that really requires you to pick up the next volume. It's worth noting that from what I've seen online, this apparently collects the first two issues of Volume 2 of Batman Beyond. In case you're not sure, Volume 2 was this one here. I don't know if this is true, but I reread them anyway. And frankly, I can't see that they're actually relevant in any way. So that may well just be an error on Wikipedia and on the Amazon listing. So I don't really know why that was the case there. Anyway, moving down, the second trade, which follows it, is called Batgirl Beyond and collects issues 17 to 29. And the first few issues wrap up the crazy cliffhanger from the last volume, and Batgirl is actually only in the last 3 issues. She is, however, very, very cool. Phew. Okay, now, with that over, we are done with that yellow era called the Unlimited era. Now, unfortunately, we now have another anthology series to deal with next, in this blue bit, which I've just called the Universe era. You see, if we just pan out and just look at both of these in total, what you'll see there is that the yellow area, which is the Unlimited era, was then followed pretty much straight away by another anthology series that was much less confusing, thankfully. And this is what I call the Batman Beyond Universe era, because the series itself was called Batman Beyond Universe. This, much like the Unlimited series we just talked about, was a print issue that was an anthology, and it also had separate digital releases. Remember, digital releases are landscape, they're much shorter, and they tend to have the same cover for multiple issues. So in this case, in the Universe era, we were actually looking at 40 issues of what they called Batman Beyond 2.0. and then 24 issues of what they called Justice League Beyond 2.0. Now, it's worth keeping in mind, I'm just going to zoom in a bit so you can see exactly what I mean. It's worth keeping in mind that these subheadings 2.0 are a bit odd, but I guess, much like the Unlimited or Universe labels, DC was just running out of ways to add new superlatives to the titles without going down the Marvel route of terms like awesome, uncanny, or ultimate. So please try to keep it clear in your head that the Unlimited anthology series came before Universe, and Universe contains all the 2.0 series. Anyway, I'm not going to break down how the digital issues map into the physical printed issues this time because it would be a bit tedious, even for me. And I didn't bother making a chart for this one because it was fairly more straightforward, especially given how it's collected. Suffice to say, I would strongly recommend you either buy all the singles, however that works, or in fact, much more preferably, buy them as the 4 trades you can see here. Now, I would strongly recommend reading them in the order that I'm going to go through, as if you read the Justice League Beyond one first, you will not only give yourself minor spoilers, you will find it ends on a cliffhanger that doesn't get resolved till much later on. So, don't make the same mistakes I did. With that in mind, the first thing you should read of this era is Batman Beyond 2.0 Volume 1, which is called Rewired. This collects digital issues 1 to 16. Next up, and moving over to the left here, you can see Justice League Beyond. I know it's got Batman on the cover, but it's Justice League Beyond 2.0. Volume 1 is called Power Struggle, and this collects digital issues 1 to 16 of this series. I can't stress this enough. You need to read this after Rewired and before the next volume. It has to be read here. If you don't read it in that order, and I didn't, it's confusing and it's got spoilers. And it ends in a weird cliffhanger that you have to wait ages before you understand what's going on. So please read it in this order. Now, the next volume is called Batman Beyond 2.0 and is called Justice Lords Beyond. Now, it contains issues 17 to 24 of Batman Beyond 2.0, but also issue 17 to 24 of Justice League Beyond 2.0. Now, this was really good as a series and as a trade paperback, and I mean really good. It's slightly surreal to read this, knowing it had come out actually slightly after the Forever Evil event in the New 52 the previous year. And this was glaring considering the multiple thematic and narrative similarities to Forever Evil. However, it's a good story nonetheless, well worth a read, and well worth picking up with the other 2.0 collections to make one continuous story. So, whilst it's called Batman Beyond 2.0, it does collect the final parts of the Justice League Beyond 2.0 series. And then that's the last of that. However, Batman Beyond 2.0 continues getting published and it gets collected here in Volume 4, which you can see the cover of here, which is called Mark of the Phantasm. This eventually contains issue 25 to 40 and also the explanation of what's changed in Terry and Bruce's relationship. Now, with that, we have reached the end of the Batman Beyond run in this set of continuity, or this line of continuity. As you can see here, I'll zoom out a bit more. There we go. That's the end of Batman Beyond there. Now, whilst the publishing for this period has been a bit haphazard, and I personally find anthology titles to be a bit confusing and quite unfulfilling, this represents a single timeline of the characters in Batman Beyond, moving from Terry's adoption of the role all the way to the Mark of the Phantasm. So start to finish, if we just look at the top there, there we go. That is one single run from start to finish. So back in 1999, all the way up until Mark of the Phantasm there. Brilliant. Now, interesting, quite a few of these issues, especially the later ones, obviously, have been published during the time that in the real world, DC Comics has started publishing the New 52. And in fact, both of the two colored regions were all published totally during the era of New 52. So that's both Batman Beyond Unlimited, the yellow, and Universe, the blue. So what is a New 52? Well, it's really important to understand it for what we're going to talk about next on this map. So why don't we talk about that next time? And that, ladies and gentlemen, is the end of this video guide series. Hopefully this map has been useful to you, and as always, this map is available on my website for you to download free of charge. If you want to download it and print it out to follow along, please do so. It covers 345 issues. As always, please like, comment, and subscribe. As always, please follow me on Twitter, where I tend to post a one-tweet daily review of whatever I've read that day. Given that I read on average around one trade paperback a day, it's a good way to see what I'm up to and to get an idea for what's going on in the channel in the future. If you want to support the channel, it's easy. Head over to Amazon and pick up the first volume of my prose superhero novel, No Gods or Kings. It costs less than $1 and it's free if you have Kindle Unlimited. And the free excerpt of the first book can be found on the same website as this reading guide, which is nogodsorkings.com. So the link is in the description below. But until next time, everybody, stay classy.